Welcome to Inside the Indians, your source for insider information on the Tribe. Stay with us as we bring you the latest about the players, managers, and people behind the scenes at Victory Field. Now here's your host, the longtime broadcast voice of the Indians, Howard Kellman.
Hi everybody, I'm Howard Kellman. Welcome to Inside the Indians. On today's show, we'll talk with shortstop Cole Tucker, the Tribe pitching coach Bryan Hickerson. We'll also speak with left-handed pitcher Cameron Vieaux. We'll have more on the home of the Indians, WHMB. Tribe shortstop Cole Tucker, our first guest on Inside the Indians. The great Pirate Hall of Famer, Cole, Willie Stargell, said the umpires don't say work ball, they say play ball, so have fun. Yeah. And you always seem like you're having fun out there.
I try to, you know. I'm a pro baseball player, so that's really cool and fun. So I'd be pretty stupid to not be out there having fun. So yeah, that definitely applies to my game.
Well, you take charge, you have great leadership skills, which you like to see, but especially from a shortstop because you're involved in so many plays.
Yeah, well, thank you. You know, I enjoy and thrive being in the middle of the action, being in the middle of the field playing shortstop. It's where I've always played. It's where I always want to play. So I enjoy it. I love being out in the thick of it, and having some pizzazz and leadership out there doesn't hurt.
You got to the big leagues sooner than anticipated because of the injury, the collision involving a couple of players. And tell us about that big league debut and the home run and so forth.
Yeah, it was awesome. You know, I mean, whether you make your big league debut at 22 or 42, you know, it's special. So to get there sooner than anticipated is unbelievable. It's awesome. And getting there and making a big splash, hitting a homer to win the game, your first game, is something that you dream about. I couldn't have drawn it up any better. It was unbelievable. That's
got to be so hard to do because you got to be relaxed to some extent to play this game, and all the emotions going through you your first day in the big leagues.
Yeah, I was freaking out. I was running on no sleep and just pure adrenaline, you know. But that dream and that goal, you know, happening and reaching that, it made it all worth it. It was. I was so energized and freaking out. It was unbelievable.
You spent a good couple of months up there. Did they say anything to you when they optioned you back to Indianapolis?
Yeah, I mean, just go down there and get a chance to play every day and get your feet back under you and go be Cole Tucker, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going out there and having fun, and playing with these guys is a blast, and just anxious and ready for that next opportunity up there. Obviously, you know, everyone wants to play in the big leagues, so just being here and trying to hone my skills and get this thing wrapped up and put a bow on it, so when I go back up, I never come back.
Well, what's really good is, even though you did start to hit much better your last couple of weeks, but your average wasn't what you wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. You didn't take it out in the field with you. You still performed very well at shortstop.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, like we talked earlier, you know, being a shortstop and being that leader out there in the middle of the action, in the middle of the field is so important. And whether you're raking or whether you can't hit water, you know, you've got to be reliable and steady out there in the infield. And I know that's my responsibility. I know that's my game. So I just try to take that out there and continue to be locked in on defense.
Tell us the story behind your switch hitting.
It was stupid. I grew up loving shortstops, and I loved Derek Jeter, Jose Reyes, Troy Tulowitzki, and Jose Reyes was a switch hitter. So in high school, I was like, Jose Reyes switch hit, so I'm going to try to switch hit. So it was kind of just out of luck and craziness, but I did it, and I ended up being not too bad at it.
Well, you're exactly right. Cole, I thank you. I congratulate you on all you've achieved and all you're going to achieve. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Howard. I appreciate it.
That's Cole Tucker on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. halfway through the season. Give us your thoughts on the way the pitching staff's performed.
Well, wow, there's quite a spectrum there to cover. I mean, a lot of games, over 70 now, and we're right at 74.
More than
74. Overall, I think we've had a pretty good group that have been competitive, and we've had our times where we've struggled a bit and thrown too many pitches, like 200 plus pitch games and 20 plus pitch innings repeatedly and 3-ball counts and all that. But I think overall guys have rebounded and got back on the attack and gotten ahead of hitters and tried to have efficient innings. So I'm pleased with what the guys have done. Of course, quite a few have gotten an opportunity to get to the big leagues.
Yes.
So that's been pretty fun to watch.
One of the guys who's done real well here is Mitch Keller. Tell us about Mitch.
Well, Mitch is, he's young. He's a very solid competitor, and he's experienced, I think, some things this year that really will serve him well going down the road here. And he's experienced some rough outings here as well as in the big leagues, and come back from those and still learning how to pitch and not just throw his stuff in the zone somewhere, but actually utilize it in specific ways against specific hitters, which you need to do at the higher level. So I think it's been fun to watch him progress in that area.
Cam Vieaux started the year in AA, moved to AAA, and really turned it around his start in Buffalo. And we talked to him, and he said he was much more aggressive.
Yeah, and he's an aggressive guy anyway. He's a very fun competitor to watch, and it comes down to his aggressiveness being controlled in a way where he can execute pitches and not let the aggressiveness, let him drift up in the zone, which a lot of guys can do when they get aggressive like that. But controlled aggression is a really good term to use for a good pitcher, and it's fun to see him learn how to do that at the higher level too.
Mitch Keller signed out of high school. Cam Vieaux signed out of college, Michigan State. Is it different for you dealing with a pitcher who's come out of college as opposed to high school?
It depends on the individual and where they have been, what kind of mentorship they've experienced with wherever they've been, and of course, just how they were raised. And that's all over the spectrum too. So for me, it depends on the individual. I don't think there's a blanket statement I would make about a kid out of high school versus college. It depends on who they are, what they're like, where they're already at with knowing themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, and how they compete. And some guys, learn that sooner than others, and so wherever they're at in that stage, regardless of where they've been.
What's the difference for you working with a starting pitcher as opposed to a relief pitcher?
Well, starting pitcher, they have much more of a routine, on a 5-day routine. They know exactly when they're throwing their next game and who that's against. The relievers are more. What's fun about them is they have a chance to be in 3 out of 5 games, and their routine is more, how do I prepare to be ready tonight? There's a few days that they know they're not pitching, and those are usually recovery days. But being mentally and physically ready as a reliever every night, and of course, as the game is progressing, those guys should be knowing, as the game is developing, what's going to happen when they get in, or approximately when they're going to get in, and what the situation is determines, what they do when they get in there. So just a different mental dynamic and preparation and how they're into the game.
When a starting pitcher, he'll make a start and probably pitch 5 days later. Give us an idea of what he does between starts.
Well, between starts, it's all about, as soon as the start is over, next day is starting to prepare for the next one. And part of that preparation is recovery. So usually the day after is a day of a kind of workout that's best for them, that gets the soreness out and all that kind of stuff and gets their body feeling good again. And the second day after start is usually when they're back on the mound and they do a side, what we call a bullpen day. And they're throwing off the side, executing their pitches at whatever intensity they can, and they have to govern that themselves to get them feeling the best for the next start. And the next 2 days are, again, no throwing off the mound, but just physically prepping to feel good, and also doing their work to start looking at the other team and what the history is with them there and who they're facing, and start thinking about, what do I need to execute? What kind of team is this? Does this team run? Are they a bunch of guys that can hit the ball over the fence, or are they a bunch of guys who pull? Do they swing at first pitches? Starting to look at tendencies and then individual hitters besides that.
I think there's much more of that, much more study in the minor leagues than there used to be years ago of the opposition.
Absolutely. The only study I had in the minor leagues was talking with fellow pitchers or your own experience. seeing a team and when I threw against them, remembering, cataloging that the next time I faced that team, here's what happened, here's what this guy looked like, here's what we did.
Let's say a man's a low ball pitcher and he's facing a low ball hitter. How do you handle that?
Well, I want pitchers to use their strengths. I never want a pitcher to get away from what they do best. And actually, if you're a low ball pitcher, that's usually mean you probably have something that sinks and all that, which plays into a low ball hitter because great. That means we're going to give him a swing early, and we'll probably put it on the ground.
Can you also go lower than low sometimes against a guy like that?
Well, absolutely. Like a guy like Hartley needs to, with his hard sinker, fill the bottom of the strike zone and then execute pitches just below that as well. And so that's where he's going to, do his best.
What's the difference in your work with a control type pitcher as opposed to a guy who has a real power arm?
Power arm guys, it's more of a generality, like we're going to throw fastballs up in the zone and maybe a really good curveball and then throw that off of that. A control guy is, who do we pitch in and what does in mean? Does it mean in black or in, 2 ball widths off in or inner third, and then at what height, at the hands or at the thighs or at the knees? Control pitchers can do that, and they can own both sides of the plate, where guys that just power stuff, it's more like we need to execute at least 2 different kinds of pitches in the zone somewhere.
I think it's so important, even if a guy is a control type guy, he still has to pitch aggressively with conviction.
Absolutely. Every pitch has to have that. As soon as the pitcher starts to feel careful with a pitch, those pitches usually end up not as sharp, not located as well, and the hitters actually pick them up a little easier.
And I think that's one of the things when being too careful, when you get a guy who's just come up from AA or from A to AA, AAA to the big leagues, there's a pitcher's mindset, these guys are good, and they sometimes get away from their game.
They can. It depends on the individual again. Some guys come up, they don't care who these guys are. They're going to go out there and show them who they are, and or vice versa. Some guys will, feel. It usually is determined when a guy gets hit hard. That's when you're going to find out what the pitcher's really like, because it's going to happen to everybody. And how they respond is when you really find out who they are and what they do. Which
so impressed me about Blake Wyman the other day, because he gave up a home run. The next batter he's facing is a good hitter, Rusney Castillo. He didn't get defensive. He just came right after him.
Yeah, and Blake is that kind of guy. He's very competitive, nicest guy that you'll meet off the field. But when he gets on the mound, he is all business and coming at you. So he needs to stay that way, and that's how you learn to pitch.
Bryan, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Bryan Hickerson on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV 40. Pitcher Cam Vieaux, our next guest on Inside the Indians. Cam, great to have you aboard. You started the year in AA Altoona. Tell us about the change now, going from AA to AAA.
It's kind of been something I've done the last couple of years. So my first time getting moved up was from low A to high A, and I kind of figured out what it's like to pack up everything and move with pretty short notice. So year by year, I've kind of packed less with me coming to the season, and kind of gotten used to the call up. Obviously, each level's a different jump. This one is just guys are more polished and more disciplined, and that's something I've had to kind of adjust my game to.
Well, that's very well said on your part, and you're dealing with a lot of experienced hitters here that you don't in the lower minor leagues.
Yeah. I mean, guys, I've been able to get guys to swing at my pitches or get guys to bail me out with bad pitches in years past, and I've kind of found out in these 5 starts that I can't get away with that as much. So I've kind of just fine-tune everything, and I'm learning every time I go out there.
Well, that's a great attitude to have. On the other hand, you know the hitters are better, but you can't give them too much credit because that can affect your pitching with conviction.
Yeah, exactly. And like we talked about after my last start, I finally had that outing with a ton of conviction on every pitch. You know, I wasn't really, I wouldn't necessarily say I was pitching scared before, but I was kind of nibbling and giving guys maybe a little too much credit. So I think that I'm going to find that happy medium and just be able to have that conviction with as many pitches as I can.
And you know what's interesting? That start was in Buffalo. I noticed it after 2 pitches. All it took was watching you throw 2 pitches in the first inning, and I said, he looks like a different guy, more aggressive, taking it to the opposition.
Yeah. I mean, that's the normal Cam Vieaux, I guess. That's what's gotten me here, and I need to remember that and keep that with me every time I go out.
Tell us about growing up in the suburbs of Detroit and Novi and then going to Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Grew up a Tigers fan. They weren't a great team in my early years, but around 2006, they kind of had Verlander and guys like that come up and started playing some really exciting baseball. So from my middle school to high school, I was able to watch a lot of good pitchers. I don't think I missed a Verlander or Scherzer start, and those are a couple of guys that I try to model my mentality after. Then I got to go to Michigan State, which was a dream school of mine. I was very lucky to go to college with a ton of friends that I grew up with and be close to home so that my family and friends could come and see me play and visit, and it was pretty much a dream come true.
Well, tell us about the caliber of baseball in the Big Ten and playing at Michigan State.
The Big Ten's good. I mean, I still see a ton of guys that we played against my whole career, and you know, we're all here, so that's just kind of a tribute to our conference and how competitive it is, and that we still got good players up here in the north, while there are still the guys down south, but we can compete with everyone.
And tell us the story behind you signing a contract with the Pirates.
It was, I think it was like a Tuesday afternoon, sitting in my family room, and I hadn't really spoken to the Pirates in probably a year, and get a call, and they make me an offer and say, we're gonna draft you here in the 6th round, and it was pretty surreal. I went through the process the year before, so I kind of knew how it all worked. This was the first year in 16, I actually got a call. In 15, I was scrolling through Twitter and found out that I had been drafted. So it was a little bit different experience in 16.
What about having gone to college and you're playing against some guys who didn't go to college, who signed out of high school? Does that make a difference really in an overall player?
I don't think so. I think once you get to the levels, so I started in short season, and the high school guys that had come to short season had played their experience, like they've played rookie ball, they've played in the GCL. So I mean, those guys have played just as much baseball as me. It's just maybe I'd be more used to like the travel or playing in front of bigger crowds, things like that. Yeah, I mean, college for me was huge. It was a chance for me to mature off the field. So I think that it was the right decision for me to go that route.
Can you compare college baseball to any level of the minor leagues?
Yes and no. I mean, it's college baseball. You have a lot more of the hands-on coaching, and the managers there really control what seems like every move. You know, they're calling every pitch, they're calling every play defensively. Pro ball, we have the opportunity as players to kind of control our own game. You know, they'll give us some guidance when we come in between innings, but once we're out between the lines, it's on us.
So that's an adjustment, I would think, by the way. A guy who's really got to adjust is a catcher, calling his own game where he wasn't doing it in college.
Yeah, definitely. You know, in college we play summer leagues, so that's an opportunity for catchers to work on their pitch calling and kind of realize what the game's like without a pitching coach kind of telling them their every move. So I think guys who play the college summer balls as catchers, they come in pretty prepared to be able to do it.
Cam, what pitches do you throw, and tell us about each pitch?
Throw my fastball. That's my main pitch. I can pretty much put that anywhere I want. And then off of that, I've got my changeup and my slider. Those two, I'm pretty confident on all my pitches, any count. My changeup so far up here in AAA has been my go-to pitch. I've been able to get a lot of good swing and misses, some weak contacts, and being able to use that pitch in my fastball kind of helps me save my slider for when I really need it.
If you throw your fastball where you want to, it's like having 4 pitches because you have 4 different quadrants you can hit.
Exactly, yeah. And if I'm throwing it to that arm side, I do get a little natural lefty run, so it's some extra movement on there.
Cam, I thank you very much. We congratulate you on all you've achieved, and we wish you continued success.
Thank you for having me.
That's Cam Vieaux. We'll have more on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV Sports. We'd like to thank our guests, shortstop Cole Tucker, pitching coach Bryan Hickerson, and pitcher Cam Vieaux. See you next week on Inside the Indians.